The Lions acknowledged they had lost an OTA practice for violating the OTA rules, the full offseason. Whether it's voluntary or mandatory minicamp, there can be no contact of any kind during practice. It's unclear why the Lions got singled out because everybody does it. And usually what happens, Chris, you get in trouble if someone complains about it, and you've got the union president at practice, or there are accounts of a fight. I remember a few years back, the Seahawks got in trouble because there was a fight at mandatory minicamp. The union looked into it. They had too much contact, and they got busted, and they were repeat offenders. I feel like if they just looked at all teams' off-season workouts, everybody would get fined. Everybody would get in trouble. You can't have football practice without contact. It doesn't work that way. You're putting guys out there, especially when a lot of them are trying to win jobs. They're trying to lay the foundation to make it from the 90-man roster to the 53-man roster in training camp in the preseason. You have an opportunity to go out there without tempted to do it.
Yeah.
So there's always contact in the offseason. I'd love to know what the Lions did that set them apart from the other teams that are surely doing the same thing.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you. I mean, listen, we just talked about the 49ers, right? That was 2 off seasons ago, and that incident, right? I mean, there are some teams that I think fly around and maybe have a little bit more of a physical aspect, during OTAs than maybe some others, right? But yeah, more times than not, that means like, hey, one is somebody on your team tattletaled, or you had this type of practice when there was an NFLPA representative there, which you would think like you wouldn't do that, or what? Like the NFLPA can look at tape every now and then and bring it out and go, hey, let me just take a view of practice that they follow in the rules. It's one of those 3 things there. I would think. But man, yeah, Dan Campbell and that crew up there, Aaron Glenn, I would think practice is a little crazy and they, put the pedal to the metal more than other teams. That's why who they are. That's why they're biting kneecaps, right? I mean, I don't think there's any again, the 49ers and the Lions are in the NFC Championship game. There's some reasons behind that. There's a fine line there, and it's tough, Mike, like you said, because it's people competing and you're trying to set a winning culture, and that's a big part of it.
Okay, so this was a pretty interesting story to me because this stood out to me a couple years ago, I guess at this point, when the Detroit Lions were on Hard Knocks with Dan Campbell. And he said something that I completely disagreed with. And for the record, you guys all know I'm super high on the Detroit Lions. So I feel like anytime I ever have to say something somewhat negative about a team, I have to establish, so you guys all don't come at me and be like, you're a hater. Because I've said nothing but positives about the Detroit Lions. Nothing but positives. I'm very high on them. But what Dan Campbell said a couple years ago on Hard Knocks really stood out to me because he's wrong about this thing. It's too old school and it's proven to be wrong. He claims that the harder you work out and the harder you are physically in the early stages, you're less likely to get injured. That it really is bad now, because he said, I know this is hard, but it'll pay dividends later. And that's just not exactly true. I understand what he's trying to say. It's not to say that you don't work hard at all, but we realize, especially in terms of injury prevention, the way you get injured, more than anything, it's actually fatigue. So there's a few variables in working out, not only weightlifting, but now also just like running and contact. And when I mean like working out, I mean like practice in general. It's fatigue because you have other variables like volume, meaning how much you're doing. So let's just obviously say football practice and you're trying to work on a tackle, right? Let's just make this super generic, right? You're just trying to tackle a quarterback or whatever, right? Which you're not necessarily doing in practice, but we're just trying to tackle the quarterback. If you do that 10,000 times in a practice, the amount of times you do it, as long as you're not tired, does not coincide with a risk of injury. How hard and how intense you go, whether you tackle really hard or just kind of softly, might be a little counterintuitive, but also is not a direct correlation of what causes injury. But what does is fatigue. how tired you are. Now, if you are really already tired and exhausted, which can come from doing a lot of volume, can come from doing a lot of intensity, but not always, depending on how this is all managed. That's why balance is key. That's when you get injured. There's a reason why in baseball pitchers can't pitch all the time, why they're on a pitch count, because they know that their increase of injury goes through the roof when they're tired. You see this in professional weightlifters, whether power lifters, strongmen, bodybuilders, whatever it is. They have to taper up and then they pull back slightly to keep themselves fresh right into the competition. They don't just go hard, go hard, go hard, go hard. It wears you down. It's why people get injured when you're playing pickup football, basketball, baseball, whatever. People always get injured at the end. People are always getting injured when it's like the last run of the day, the last few points in a game. It's always at the end, never in the beginning. So and we know that. It's just very clear because at this point, especially in terms of weight training, which definitely transfers over to football and basketball and those other sports, because it's just performance. It's human performance. We have so much data on that now, and it's actually what the Eagles did a couple seasons ago. They had a very specific way how they had approached practices, where they go I forget exactly what it was, but they go hard for 2 days and then they go easy on 1 day. They were very balanced in that regard, and they had the healthiest team. When they went to the Super Bowl, they had the healthiest team, right? They had 0 injuries, and it matters. It really does matter. So the reason why I'm putting this all out is, one, it's a fundamental philosophy that I disagree with Dan Campbell, and two, my guess is someone probably did complain. It was either coming from the outside because they just heard through whispers Dan Campbell is pushing it too hard, and the NFL doesn't want that because they don't want injuries, or it was a player. A player's like, this is nonsense. This is not fair. I know my boy down at Minnesota, wherever. I'm making up a team. Maybe shouldn't have said Minnesota. Down in Philly, right? Like they're not doing this, and they complain. I mean, who knows really who complained? Maybe it was a subtle complaint, and then it wasn't intended to obviously have any type of things. But listen, man, we've all been on teams, or we've all been at work. If you haven't played sports at a high level, like we've all been part of some sort of groups where someone complains about something, goes to the boss, goes to the coach, goes to HR, goes to wherever, and tattletales. We need a better word for when we're not 8 years old here. And that's probably what happened. I think that Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions do push it to the limit. They probably are theoretically going harder than anyone else, any other team. And I'm sure some of the players buy into it, and some of the players are like, no. They're not doing this at some of these other places. I'm not doing it. And they get annoyed. These are grown men. Yes, they're willing to do whatever it takes, but sometimes they don't, they agree. And then here's the thing. This is why I also brought up kind of weightlifting and strength and conditioning and stuff like that. A lot of these guys, they either have their own private trainers or whatever, or their own therapists, or the other teams. And you're always talking. Whenever you're getting treatment done, if you're working out, you're just talking. You're talking about everything from TV shows to your body to last season, this season. It doesn't matter. Video games. You're talking about everything. And it's not hard to imagine that a strength and conditioning coach, a physical therapist, whoever is doing some work on, again, insert any player's name. And he's like, man, coach is working us real hard, this, that. He keeps saying that, the harder we work now, the less likely we will be injured and the more prepared we'll be. And that strength and conditioning coach will probably be like, yeah, I don't know how true that is. I mean, I get coaches saying that, but, actually, the more you work, like, the more run down you become and the less likely you are to be healthy. So, hey, man, like, I know you're kind of banged up right now. Your lower back is really tight, man. Like, I understand they want you to go hard, but like, your position is set. You signed your contract. Like, just take it a little bit of easy. Like, and they start talking. And a lot of athletes really, I've been in this position on both sides, both as an athlete, trusting the trainer, as well as kind of being the trainer and telling the athlete, their word becomes God. Like they really listen to them. They really listen to them because these are the people that really understand how the body works, the mechanics, the kinesiology, the data on it. They're the ones that are dealing with people who are getting injured, preventing them from getting injured. They know all this. So again, it's all balance. It's why basketball got so popular with load management, avoiding back-to-backs. That's the exact reason why. If you play 82 games in a basketball season, but no back-to-backs, you minimize risk, even though it's the same volume, the same frequency, because of fatigue. And I know football has the reputation of, well, that's, we're tough, we're this, we're that. I get it. You obviously have to be tough. You obviously have to be hard to play football. But again, it's also accepting the new age of things, understanding if you want to be better, stronger, faster, you do that by adopting modern practices, modern research, modern science. That's why these players are going harder and faster and playing longer, deeper into their career, because we understand these things. And you do have old school coaches that want to reject that and want to say, oh, this era is for weak people, not like what we had to go through. Sometimes there's some truth to that. Sometimes there's not. So I just think that this was probably Dan Campbell pushing too hard. He's motivated. The Lions are motivated. They want to wash the bad taste out of their mouth from last season because they know how close they were. I believe it's someone like a Dan Campbell. It's been haunting him every single day since it's happened. He is not some big hot shot celebrity playboy guy. Like, he is focused on football. He just eats, sleeps, and dreams football. He is all about it. He is not all about the glitz and glamour. He's not all about the Hollywood, getting the women, this. I don't know if he's married or whatever his life is, but it's not what he's about. He just wants to win. That is where he is old school. And I can really appreciate that. I love that. He is all about the business, all about it. And that's awesome, right? The bite your kneecaps, all that stuff. But because of that, that's his reputation, and it opens you up for this type of stuff. So listen, this isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it's also not what you want to see, right? You don't want to have these types of things, and I don't believe it gives you an edge. I really, really do not believe it gives the Detroit Lions an edge. If anything, it potentially can hurt the Lions, which is the last thing you need, because they are right there to win a Super Bowl. I truly believe that, and you just don't want to set them up to have any type of issues, whatever it may be. Never be your own worst enemy. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions and them violating the live contact rules? Do you think this is much ado about nothing? Or do you think that this is a player complained, and if a player did complain, that is kind of a big deal, because what the heck, why would a player complain and get your own team in trouble? Not good. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.